Hello, good to see you. I don't know if she will be joining.
I wanted to give you all an update, really, of the conversation we had on the objective design standards, and we are working with Chair Moore in our work group to get back to you to have a conversation just amongst us. Rosie Dicey is unable.
And I'm going to go ahead and turn my webcam off. And Mr. Chair, if you are ready, once the broadcast, that short little recorded message is over, you can open up the meeting, and then Mary's going to come on to do roll call. And just as a reminder to the board and then also the applicants that Timmy Bolton is controlling the plans today. So if you'd like him to go to a particular page number or zoom in on something, you can just ask Timmy to do so. Okay, thank you so much.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay, we are going to open the agenda for the Architectural Board Review for June 29th of 2020. We'll start with our roll call.
Thank you. This is Mary, Commission Secretary. I will take the roll call. We have Chair Moore.
Here.
Vice Chair Six.
Here.
Board Member Black.
Here.
Board Member Cunningham.
Here.
Board Member Olson.
Here.
And Board Member Whalen. So it appears that Board Member Whalen and Watkins are absent.
Okay, thank you. And we will move on to general business and public comment. Any member of the public may address the board for up to 2 minutes on any subject that's not on today's agenda. Do we have anybody?
Mr. Chair, Ellen Kokendo, we do not have any members of the public attending at this time. So back to you.
Okay, so with that we'll close public comment and move on to approval of the minutes for June 15th. Does anybody have any edits or comments for June 15th?
No,
I was not.
I move for approval of the minutes as shown. Second.
Okay,
I'll second.
too slow, Bob. So we had a first and a second. Any discussion? No? Okay, then let's do our roll call vote.
Yeah, this is Mary. I'll take the roll call. We have Chair Moore.
I was not present, so I will abstain. from
Okay,
voting.
Vice Chair Six,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Aye.
Board Member Cunningham,
Aye.
and Board Member Olson.
Aye.
And Board Member Whalen and Watkins are absent.
Okay, motion carries. So moving on to the next agenda for the consent calendar for June 29th, which is today.
I so move.
Well, let's hear him first.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. We have item A, 835 East Cannon Perdido. It received approval of its review up to final with a minor zoning exception and condition that the fence be weather treated in some way, and it could be a clear weather coating. And then 2016 Red Rose Way was given project design of final approval.
Great.
Now I'll move
Gary.
for. Second.
Excellent.
I'll
Okay.
second.
Too slow again, Bob. Gotta be fast.
Damn it.
All right, so any discussion? No? All right, let's do our vote.
All right, this is Mary. We have Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Six,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Cunningham,
Yes.
Board Member Olson.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
Okay. And I think that's it for the minutes. Okay, any announcements, requests by applicants, etc.? Matthew?
Mr. Chair, we have no announcements today.
Okay. Would this be an appropriate time to mention briefly the, for Richard to ask his question?
Mr. Chair, Board Member Six, I believe the appropriate time for that would be when the item comes up.
Okay.
And we can just clarify the role of the board at that time. I still do not see Tava Ostringer from the City Attorney's Office in the meeting, so I will send her an email and let her know you have questions.
Okay, great. And then subcommittee reports. As Matthew alluded, the objective design standards met again to review additional edits and make suggestions. And as he said, I would be making a small presentation of the current status of that in the near future to the board. So that's coming at some point. All right. Anybody else? Any other subcommittees? Probably not. Okay. Let's move on then. After general business, we have our first item, which is 221 West Pueblo Street. And they're here requesting final approval. And this is a proposal for a commercial remodel entailing a 144 square foot addition to the first floor lobby, resurfacing all exterior facades, either with plaster or repaired wood siding, demolition of an exterior stair, ADA improvements, and changes to the hardscape and landscaping. Parking spaces proposed to be replaced with 2 new parking spaces. This project requires substantial conformance with the plans, granted project design approval on June 1st. Okay, do we have our applicants?
You
And
want
we
us,
could probably,
you want us
sorry,
to
say that.
you want
Yeah, I
us,
think if, yes. Thank you. Yeah, if the board members can turn their cameras off, that way the applicants have room.
Yes, and Mr. Chair, if I could just also ask the board members if everybody could mute themselves, just so that we don't pick up any background noise as well. Thank you.
Do we have our applicants? Here we go.
I'm Mark Shields with Design Arc. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, welcome back.
Thank you.
And if you could take us through, actually, do we have our motion from the last review? Perfect. Okay, there we go. Okay. So really the things that we're going to be looking for, number 2, look for additional landscaping opportunities throughout the project, particularly in the parking field. All exterior lights shall be true downlights, provide our front sight wall is more sympathetic to the neighborhood. And then we went through the compatibility findings. So not a whole lot left. If you could walk us through and address those for us, that'd be great.
Yes, love to. Good afternoon, everybody. Good seeing you guys. If you would go to landscape sheet L4, I'll just take the minutes one by one. Okay, at the last meeting, you asked us to study, excuse me, that's my phone, expand or take a look at the landscaping around the sides of the parking area and to expand the curbs actually as much as we can into the parking. So we came up with the sawtooth pattern, both to the east and to the west of the property. So that it does provide more dirt for landscaping. But we have wheel stops for the cars so that they can overhang these new sawtooth landscaping areas. We also studied expanding the planters in the center parking area so that, again, wheel stops and the cars will overhang these spaces slightly as well. So the net effect of that is just gaining a lot more landscaping and a lot more room to plant. So that was our first step. So that's one answer to one of the minutes. And then if you'd like to go to the exterior lighting page, A401, the architectural. Okay, A401, and actually, if we could go to E1 first.
Very last thing.
I think it's the very last sheet. Okay, and so we had some uplights shown and the landscape had some uplights, so we've kind of eliminated all the uplights. We have downlighting on the entry steps, and then most of the other lighting is downlighting as well. We do have one uplight, but which is B, but it's contained by the soffit above the entry. So essentially it's in the ground, but it uplights the soffit, which is above it. So essentially there's no night sky lighting. And it's also surrounded by a building on 2 sides. So I think that's a fair, I think we're following the rules and regulations fairly there. And that was the only light that was maybe a little bit in question. So that's our solution to that situation. Then if you could go to, I want to say page, go to A301 next. And this, if you take a look at the front elevation, which is the top of the sheet, one of the questions or asks from the board a couple of weeks ago was to study the idea of adding sandstone to the lower planter walls all along the street. And both the clients and I felt like that was maybe overdoing it a bit, especially when you take a good solid look at all the adjacent properties up and down Pueblo Street, in particular on our block. And so I went back and looked, and most every property, some properties have low site walls. I wanted to show you a photo if that helps. But in general, and actually they're all plaster up and down the street. And I could go on, but there are no sandstone walls anywhere along Pueblo Street, at least on our block. Certainly there are some new sandstone walls incorporated with the more monumental College Hospital, which is 2 blocks away. So we felt that that was a little bit inappropriate, especially since that's more traditional in terms of Santa Barbara architecture, and our project is so contemporary. But we also took your thoughts into consideration, and because it is a Santa Barbara project, we're suggesting that the majority of the low walls would be a dark colored, integral colored plaster, kind of natural, kind of goes with the landscaping a bit more. We added a few more boulders in the planters as well. And then in addition to that, we thought it'd be nice, and maybe an nod to the Santa Barbara theme would be to do the 2 low walls flanking the entry stair in sandstone. It would be like a dry joint, more flush sandstone, more contemporary sandstone pattern. And then also, we thought it'd be nice to make the risers to these entry stairs in sandstone as well. The treads are actually concrete, and concrete goes back into the entry. So we thought this was a nice compromise between our feelings about too much sandstone and your suggestions of adding sandstone back into the project. And we hope you like that solution. Those were the particular issues that we responded to from the minutes. And then if you'd like to go to page A802 next. We're applying for final today. So here are just a few of the final details, of course, which we're required to submit. Number 1 would probably be up on the upper left-hand corner would be the stainless steel stanchion lines, a cable rail, which is upstairs on the balcony between the 2 buildings. We have a nice hardwood handrail on top of the cable rails, whether it's teak or mahogany, the owner hasn't decided yet, but that's the intention. They're dark. Another detail to look at would be the low planter wall on detail 12 at the bottom. Since we are suggesting plaster, we're suggesting adding these stainless steel nubs just to prevent skating and destruction of the upper corner of that wall. Another detail to look at would be, if you want to pan back again, what other key detail? Our stairs are steel stairs with, I believe it's concrete treads, right, George, between the steps going up? The great stairs. Yeah, yeah. Yes. Yeah. So our stairs are steel C-sections, which kind of you can see in detail 4 at the lower right-hand side of the sheet, with concrete treads, which is appropriate, I feel, for this type of structure. Other than that, we have a typical screed detail, which if you pan back out again, is, I thought I saw it in our set.
There's another page 801.
Oh, 801, yeah. Sorry, go back one. If you go to sheet 801, which is back one, there you go. So our typical screed detail would be a control joint, which is detail 6 and detail 7. So it's a vinyl control joint between the integral colored plaster. Our storefronts are match the existing storefronts. They're aluminum and they'll be dark in color. And I think that about sums it up really for the major changes we've made and the adjustments per your suggestions. So I hope this is enough for final approval. Looking forward to your comments. Kim, would you like to step in and go through the list?
Okay. I'm Kim True of True Nature Landscape Architecture. I'll be presenting the landscape drawings today. And that starts on sheet L1. Okay. L1 is just the demolition plan. We're removing everything. We're keeping a number of the very nice palms in the front. And then after discussing the condition of the existing street tree with Nathan Slack, that it's in very severe decline. So that's going to come out. And that's in the parkway. So that's being shown on this plan that's new that no one's seen. And so then on to L2, which is our hardscape plan. So showing the color of our permeable pavers in the parking stall, excuse me. They are matching the Santa Barbara sandstone color. In the parkway, which is currently all turf on spray heads, we're proposing to remove that and do a nice planting out there and then provide some areas for people to get out of their cars and walk, make it over to the sidewalk. And that would be in decomposed granite with a little bit of the felt and gold gravel seeded into the edges, blending into the planting. So it's very soft and bringing out a few of the sandstone boulders into that. Same plant palette as we have proposed before for our planters out front so that it ties in to the property. And this is a similar look to a couple other properties along the street. So it's carrying that look and that function forward. So we're just keeping with the same materials that you see at the entry stairs and the walls that Mark spoke to. So that's repeating in the landscape. And so then on to L3, which is our irrigation plan. So this is our full irrigation plan. It is all spray and we are converting everything over to drip. We're reusing a couple sections of main line, but looking at replacing the majority of the system. We have a new controller, Weathermatic SL1600 with an on-site weather station so that we're working with ET data on site. Again, everything is drip that we're proposing. And we're removing some of the current funky situation and the entire irrigation system will now be off of one point of connection and controlled by backflow per code. So we are, doing a hybrid of modifying what's existing, working with it, try to keep costs down and reuse some of that stuff and bringing in more efficiency and water conservation to the project and a healthier landscape. And then on to L3 is our planting plan or L4, sorry. L4 is our planting plan. And Chairman Cunningham had asked to study additional planters in the middle parking area. And it's so tight as it is with the drive aisles and the canopy conflicts. It just really wasn't room for another tree in the middle. But I did study the sawtooth planters, which were expanded down to down at the bottom end there. And I did add another tree, another evergreen olive, fruitless olive down there. So I did study that and we added our tree in that location to continue to buffer in that area. No big surprises on the planting plan, with a little minor reconfiguration of the parking stalls. The large Mediterranean fan palm that we were going to keep closer to the building, I've moved that into the island, middle island of the parking lot, so that it's on center with the new lobby. So as you come up the stairs and look through the building into the parking lot, you'll see this beautiful multi-trunk existing Mediterranean fan palm. And we've added a landscape light in the canopy of the tree behind it to downlight the palm and highlight that, as well as bollard lights you'll see. So we're really creating that function of a focal point, and also screening the landscape by reusing, or screening the parking lot by reusing that tree. And we have the plectranthus ground cover, which likes the reflected heat throughout the project. And I'm playing with a variegated form and an evergreen form. So the variegated form in some of the darker areas to brighten them up. And then the evergreen elsewhere. And that does have a blue flower. It's attractive, and have a number of succulents, different varieties of aloe. So we'll have different orange blooms throughout the year. So some good color and interest and texture and form, along with some interesting variegated agaves throughout the project. And that's the highlights of the planting since you've last seen it. And the next sheet, L5, is our landscape lighting plan. We do not have any more of the bullet lights. Those have been taken out of the project. And I've increased the number of the bollards, and we're using those throughout as accent lighting. This is a nice light because it shines in two directions. So it provides pedestrian wayfinding to illuminate the walkway, and it also lights back and illuminates the landscape. So we're getting kind of double function out of those lights, and they're at a height where it works to light up our lighting, or our landscape, excuse me. I'm also proposing the FX Lumiere tree lights that they're the bell lights with the long perforated sleeve on them. So that gives a nice diffuse light to the canopy up in the tree, and then it also serves to light, has good beam spread down below to light up the landscaping and provide a little subtle security, brighten up the dark corners of the property in the parking lot, and make it safe and secure for the neighbors around the area at night, and for people visiting after dark to the medical offices in winter. And we have the next sheets are just our standard details, irrigation details, how to install a rock, in case you don't know how to do that. And I think, is there one more sheet? Just very simple irrigation details. And then we're on to, I think, done with the landscape. And if there's any other questions on that.
Okay. Thank you for that. Anything else you want to add?
We did,
Before we move on?
I think the one last thing with the palm tree out front, the Washingtonia, we're proposing that's going to be reviewed by staff on the July agenda now, or August agenda now. And we're either going to be keeping the Washingtonia, or it will be removed and replaced with the king palm. And so we have it either or, pending their approval.
Can we look at sheet A301 for a second?
Are you muted, Mike?
Oh, am I?
No.
There we go. Anyway, this is the palm tree that Kim was referring to, and on the far left.
Okay, great. Is that everything you wanted to get through? All right.
Good,
Okay. And so we'll move now to open public comment. Is there anybody from the public who wishes to comment on this project?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, this is a pretty quiet meeting today. We don't have anyone attending by webinar, so I'll ask Matthew if we received any written comment.
We did not receive any written comment, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so with that, we will close public comment and go to questions from the board. Let's start with, Mr. Cunningham.
Thank you. I'm not the chair, but anyway, things, Kim, regarding the, regarding the Mediterranean fan palm, I couldn't, the plans are pretty small on my screen, so I'm not sure exactly where you're planning to put it, but I think I understand that it's going to go in the first island of the parking lot, closest to the building.
Correct.
And my question there is, based on what appears to be maybe a 8 to 10 foot distance between the palm and the new colorateria, I would be a little concerned about the palm growing into the canopy of the colorateria because it's got that potential. Are you planning on having or giving direction to the maintenance people to remove extra tall trunks on the palm?
We can certainly
That's
do
the
that.
question.
Yep.
Okay, I like the idea, but you are looking at a potential conflict over a few years. The second question is with regard to the lights in the trees. How big are the trees going to be when they're planted? Are you confident that you're going to have branches from which you can hang those lights?
We're coming in with 36-inch trees, so they should be an okay size. We'll have to do a little pruning, and that is going to be an item that the way they're wired, they can be adjusted over time, and something maintenance is going to have to reposition those. But I think I haven't had a problem with that in the past.
Okay, no further questions. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Six. Questions?
Yes, Mark, are you going to clear glass or is it going to stay bronze?
We're staying with the bronze. We don't plan on switching out any of the existing glass.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot of it. And so we're trying to, well, even though we're doing a really nice job of remodeling this project, we're trying to keep costs down. And that's just one of those things we're not going to be changing.
Good, great. And I noticed that you lowered the horizontal trellis.
Yeah, you did notice that, Richard, and we did that just because of you and your comments.
Thank you. It really
I
bugged me.
think that's we're fine with that change.
All right, thanks. That's all my questions.
Mr. Olson, questions?
No questions.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, this is Ellen Kokenda. I just want to let you know that Mr. Whalen has also joined us. And can I ask maybe Mr. Cunningham if we turn your webcam off just to check your webcam, Mr. Whalen? Thank you. And then your audio.
There he is.
I'm unmuted now.
Okay, great. Thank you. I just wanted to double check, and I'm not sure at what point you came in, but I wanted to let the chair know. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a new device for me, so I appreciate the testing and that it is working.
Okay. Richard and Leon, if you could maybe turn your cameras off, we can get Dennis.
I thought the applicant were supposed to turn theirs off.
Well, we're still in questions.
Oh, okay.
So I want to get Dennis and then David in there for questions. So Dennis, if you have any questions?
No questions, Chair Moore.
Okay. Mr. Black, any questions?
Quick question. Kim, can you just confirm for me, because it's not real clear on the plan for me, that the sawtooth planters at the top of the parking lot there. There are existing trees along there?
There are
Those olives? What are those?
there's existing vines on the wall,
Okay.
and there's one very sad purple leaf plum. What you're seeing here is our lighting plan and our proposed tree locations.
Right.
So
So
should
I
we go
see
to L1? Can we go to sheet L1, please?
Yeah, there we go.
That's our proposed planting.
okay. I saw 4 uplights in the middle there, but I only see how many trees are there?
Well, they're bollard lights.
Bollards. Mhm.
Oh, got it. Okay, bollard. Sorry. So, forgive me.
So
So, what I see one, they're very lightly drawn, so I assume they were existing. But so I see 1, 2, 3 trees at the top there, in those sawtooth planters. What are those?
There's aloes proposed, there's ground cover, and there's existing vines trained to the wall, and there's 2 trees proposed.
And are they shown clearly? I just don't see them. I see the jacaranda on the left, and then the Corataria on the wait. Oh no,
On
that's
the right.
That's an
Uh-huh.
Timmy, can we zoom in on that?
Yeah.
Kind of in that zone,
Sorry.
a little further.
I'm
Can
sorry.
we
So,
zoom in a little bit more? To that, yep. No, at the top right of the sheet. There we go.
oh, okay. Well, those aren't trees at all. So we don't have trees along there. Is there a reason for
Yeah,
that?
there's an apartment building right there.
Yeah.
And then we've got the 2-foot tree, the 2-foot tire overhang.
So we don't have room. Is that the thing?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. That was the only question I had. Oh, and then out front, you talked about the potential for removing a Washingtonia, so that and replacing it with a king palm. So if you replace it with a king palm, then what palms would be out there?
We'd have 3 king palms instead of 2 guys and an oddball.
Okay, I like that. Good.
Yeah.
Okay. No other questions. Thank you.
Okay, does anybody else have any other questions? Last chance. Okay, so we're gonna move on to comments. So if we could have the applicants turn their cameras off. We'll get the board up here, all the board members. And we'll go into comments. David, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I think it's fine the way it's been revised and presented. Thanks. No other comments.
Short and sweet. All right. Leon, any comments?
Yes, I think it's a good project. I appreciate all the changes that have been made. I think it's ready for final.
Okay. Bob, comments?
I'm in complete agreement. I have nothing to add. Thank you.
Richard?
Yes, it's a nice project. I'm in agreement and appreciate what they've done to the front wall.
Okay. Dennis?
I too am in complete agreement with the proposed project as is.
Okay. Yeah, and I agree. I think it's a nice upgrade, and I think the landscape is going to be great. So who wants to make that motion?
I move we approve the project for final approval.
Okay. I heard Richard second that first. So we have Mr. Olson and Mr. Six, seconded by Mr. Six. Any discussion? No? Okay. Matthew, is there any additional language that needs to be read into the motion at this time?
I think, Mr. Chair, this is Ellen Kokenda. I know that
Mhm.
Matthew may have been having some issues with his audio and connecting. I
Okay.
don't think it's the case that there's any additional findings that you have to make at this time. If
Okay.
hopefully that's correct.
Mr. Chair, this is Irma Unzueta. Just to your point or to your question, the standard of review for final is just that the application or the project is in substantial conformance with what you granted the project approval for. So if you are all comfortable with that, then that's all.
Okay, great. So why don't we just, Leon, do you want to just add that to the motion, just so it's clear? We feel it's in substantial conformance.
So we feel that this project is in substantial conformance to the compatibility considerations.
Okay. All right, so we had our first and our second. Let's take our vote.
All right, this is Mary. I will take the roll call. We have Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Six,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Cunningham,
Yes.
Board Member Olson,
Yes.
and Board Member Whalen.
Yes.
All right, motion passes.
All right, congratulations, and thank you very much for a nice project. Okay, how are we doing on time? Are we?
Mr. Chair, our next item is scheduled for 4:15, so it looks like we have about 20 minutes before we can hear the item, or 19 minutes now.
Okay.
Matthew and Chair Moore.
Yes.
I'm not going to stick around for the next item. I have a hostile bias toward the architecture at City College, and therefore I don't think I can be fair or even kind in my commentary. So I'm gonna, with your permission, leave the meeting at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, we will recess until 4 o'clock. Is that right,
4
Matthew?
o'clock, yep, 4 o'clock would be the time. All right,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
And Mr. Chair, if you want to, when you open the meeting back up, I might ask the board members to turn their webcams on just to make sure that. Okay, so it looks like we have everyone, and I also wanted to let you all know that we have Assistant City Attorney Tava Ostringer on the call as well, and she'll be able to answer any questions that you have.
So, Mr. Chair, could you please test your audio? Not hearing you right now. We're not hearing you still. Says you're unmuted. We can read your lips, yeah.
One thing we can test, Mr. Chair, if you switch from computer audio to phone call and then back to computer audio, that might work. Did you all get if he can hear us, or we just can't hear him? All right, let's, it looks like he's just logged out and is gonna try logging back in.
Okay.
All right, we can hear you now.
Can hear you.
Right. Excellent. Great. Whenever you're ready. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Hold on.
Mr. Chair.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Excellent. Okay, great. Go ahead, Richard.
Yeah, I don't know when it's appropriate to, during this presentation, to ask my question, but to be safe, I'll ask it even before the presentation. I'm very concerned about this architecture and the fact that this is a courtesy only review and the applicant can take it or leave our comments no matter. And I'm wondering if, I know that our comments are a courtesy and have no requirements to be followed, but is in this process, is the courtesy review in its entirety a requirement for this applicant to proceed with getting his approvals? And I'm saying that as if there's no quorum to either respond or even hear the applicant, does that mean that there has been no courtesy review and the applicant would have to come back until there is a quorum? I hate to throw that out to you, Teva, but is the courtesy review in its entirety a requirement?
The Chair Moore, Board Member 6, there's a government code section that exempts school districts and state agencies from complying with city ordinances. Generally, the code section that I'm referring to provides that if the body, in this case, it would be a school district, city college district, has passed a resolution that exempts it, then this is merely what it is. It's a courtesy review, and they're coming to you to hear your comments.
Go ahead.
So I haven't. I'm trusting staff that they are aware of a resolution or memorandum of understanding. I know with this high school district, we have such a thing that says that they'll request a courtesy review, but there is the government code section that allows them to exempt themselves, just as if we would be doing something in the county that we could exempt ourselves from similarly from their ordinances.
So they could proceed without having a courtesy review at all?
Yes, if they're complying with the government code sections with regards to how they take that vote. I'm assuming they have, because it's, and that's just assuming, I'm relying on staff that they're following this. It's, I mean, these are how they've always come before you.
Okay, good. So if we didn't, okay, I guess that's the answer. Irma, is there, it's not required that they have a courtesy review in order to proceed through their permitting.
Mr. Chair, yes, Mr. Chair and Board, we are not requiring this review. The applicant has requested the review. They do need a condition, a coastal development permit, which may have some findings that require some type of a finding on aesthetics. So I believe that may be the reason for having this review. But no, it's not a requirement, at least in terms of design review, the way we usually see projects, and you have the approval authority in this case. It's just for your comments.
Okay, and the coastal review aesthetic findings are generated and determined to be acceptable by who?
It would be by the, I believe in this case, and I'm sorry, I don't know specifically, it would be the Coastal Commission.
Coastal Commission. Okay, thank you. All right, that would answer my questions.
Okay, thank you. All right, so this is item number 2, 721 Cliff Drive. This is a pre-application review and is a courtesy review of a new physical education building within the state of California's permitting jurisdiction at Santa Barbara City College. The project includes the construction of a new 77,187 square foot 4-story structure containing classrooms, gym, locker rooms, administration space, and support spaces. Also proposed are site improvements, including new paving, stairs, and landscaping. And this is for comments only. So if we could have the board members turn their webcams off, we can get the applicants up. All right. Welcome. We just have one applicant, or is there another?
Lindsay Moss is also on from Santa Barbara City College, and my name is Steve Key, and I'm the project architect for LPA, who's working for the City College.
Great, welcome. If you could
Thank you.
Take us through your project. Now, and just before you jump in there, obviously this is, you know, we have very little input here. So I think it's appropriate to focus on the broad brush. You know, what does the exterior of the building look like? Site improvements. We're not interested in what's inside the building or the what and the how. So
Sure.
just, what does this look like? All right.
Sure.
Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Lindsay, before I start, is there anything that you wanted to say? Or would you like me to just jump right in?
Oh, well, I'll introduce myself. My name is Lindsay Moss. I'm the Vice President of Business Services at Santa Barbara City College. And yes, we did want to bring this to you, as you mentioned earlier, to get your opinions and feedback, because we do value our community's opinions about our facilities and like to be a good colleague with our city friends. And we've been meeting with the city to go over this project a few times already. So thank you for the opportunity to go through this. And I hope that Steve Key from LPA with our architecture firm can focus on the exterior images, as you just noted, because that would be kind of the more interesting part for you all.
Okay. Perfect. So with that, would you mind going to the plans that are up on the screen are a little bit more kind of detailed, and I'm sure if you wanted to look at them, you probably have, but there's a PDF you have up on the screen called renderings.pdf. I believe that is the one we want to start with, and it should, I don't know what order these are in, but this is okay. Can you try to go to the front of the building? I'm sorry, it's hard to control from my end. This is the back of the building. Keep going. There we go. So let me take one step back. So the first thing I want to note for everybody is there's an existing building currently already on campus. Right now it is seismically unsafe. So the state has been granted additional funding from the state of California for a building replacement. So we do not have the opportunity to actually keep the existing building. We have to replace it with new. However, the exact program that already exists on the campus will be the same moving into this one. So we're not increasing any programs, and actually the square footage is pretty much like for like from the existing building to this new building. The location of this building will be in between, if you know Loma Alta and where the stadium is. The location of the building itself will actually be in between where the current large volume is for the gymnasium and the stadium. We're actually going to keep that existing building operational just during construction, and then it'll be replaced with this building. The view that you're seeing here is actually coming down Loma Alta towards the ocean, and what you'll see is it's predominantly a 3-story mass that houses the majority of the main spaces with the gymnasium, the Life Fitness Center, and all the other programs that go into this building. And then the upper element that you saw prior is actually some standard classroom buildings that are up on the upper portion of the bluff, which is really only a 1-story element. So at max, this is a 3-story building when you're kind of experiencing it. And similar to the building as it stands today, you kind of experience it at different levels as you kind of move around it. So as you're coming down Loma Alta, you're seeing to the left what is currently the existing gymnasium will be turning into open space for the community. So there'll be some new green area and kind of repurposing of the existing parking lot there with the kind of just reorganizing it. So I'll have new green space. And the architectural elements as you move around this building are being respective to the same type of materials that are already on campus, some of them with a modern take. The majority of the structure is actually a cast-in-place concrete building, which is very similar to the other buildings on campus, and reflect the ability to be respectful to kind of the plaster of Santa Barbara and have that same type of look. However, plaster is the element on here that we're actually using the concrete to mimic. We also have some of the Santa Barbara sandstone, which is in this kind of brown color here, kind of in that middle bar that's floating. It's representative color, and it's not the sandstone itself because we don't have the funds to be able to actually use that sandstone, but we are giving a nod to the Santa Barbara sandstone and being able to use that same color palette. And then the roof itself, being able to take, since this is somewhat experienced from the ground, the roof colors are taken from the same type of terracotta tile roofs that are found throughout Santa Barbara and the campus, yet we're actually utilizing a metal finish there, but again, respecting the colors and the colonnades as you walk around. So if you go to the next slide, This is actually a zoomed in view here. Actually, maybe go to the tail end of this. One more slide, please. Oh, there you go. One more. I want to see the very front view. These are some detail shots. You can see how you're experiencing it. One more, please. Okay, where is our front shot? There. Okay, so here is a view as if you were standing in the stadium that is currently there. So you'll see the bottom floor, which is housing all the locker room spaces, a little bit more solid, a little bit more confined. But having the ability for people to walk in and around this building is still open on all facades, maintaining access from the upper bluffs down to the lower bluffs. But also allowing the upper elements as your main entry, kind of to the right of the SBCC logo as your main entry into the building. But as this building really has multiple elevations that it exits out onto, depending on where you are on the grade, there's lots of different levels that it can, how you can experience it as you're either moving through the building to go to the campus programs that are in the building, or as you're moving around the building to get to the upper campus. So it allows those abilities. Go back one slide, please. And then this is the main view coming from the corner. If you were standing in that main parking lot, looking towards that existing gymnasium and locker room building, here's our main view. The entry and the main floor is actually on the second level. The gymnasium is located on the second level, similar to how you experience the building now as you go up into an entry plaza and then go into the buildings. Very similar approach. However, we have not only the exiting requirements of that stair, but we're providing some ability for the students and staff to be able to utilize some of that space as well. We heard a lot from the students and staff that having spaces where they could go and actually study or rest and relax and in between classes was something they wanted to be able to have the opportunity to do. So on that staircase, as well as in a couple of the other renderings that you saw, we're providing those spaces as part of this building. And if you go to the first two slides, which is actually the upper campus. So it's a little bit different, but as you're approaching this, now you're really feeling like this is a one-story building now and you're on the upper bluff. This element is how you get down into the building if you wanted to use the elevator or stairs, or you can go to the left of the building and go out towards the views if you wanted to just stroll using the exterior circulation. And then if you back up one more slide or go to the next slide, you'll see how this at the top of the campus is again, mainly their standard classrooms that are shared not only between this building, but for the rest of the campus. Again, trying to take some of that Santa Barbara colors that they have, that is kind of that white color and the terracotta red, and bringing that into the materials that we're using. And that's kind of the gist of what, as you kind of walk around the building. I don't know if you have any specific questions that I can answer for you. It kind of gives you an overview of where we're at.
Okay, thanks. Can we do this? Can we just flip through these images a couple more times?
Sure. So yeah, so we have the upper bluff. This is the standard classrooms. Keep going. Now you're going to walk around. Now you're down on Loma Alta, looking towards the upper classrooms. Up on the upper left is what you were seeing earlier. Now you're down on the lower level. This is a zoomed in view of that main entry, and how you can see you can be really activated with that large monumental stair, but you can see there's many levels that you're accessing this building. Zooming out a little bit from the main parking lot and from the beach. And then now from the stadium. This is the view you'd see from the stadium. This is the view. It's actually on the third floor. It's an area where any students from the college can come up here and enjoy the views, as well as have a place that they could study. And then we've also, you probably noticed there's a lot of ins and outs of this building. It's not just one flat facade. And that was some of the feedback we were getting from the Coastal Commission. And we need to break it up and have the ability for bird deterrence and making it clear for the birds that they know this isn't a solid a facade that they can fly into. So.
Okay. Is that all the images? No.
Yep. And that's it. And then the last image, this is just a little zoom in on some ideas we had with some of the signage possibilities that we have, as well as some more detail blow up of some of the materials.
Okay, do you want to add anything else?
No, I think that's
Before
great.
we move on?
For any questions, yeah.
Okay, so our next step is to open for public comment. So if you could sit tight and we will ask if anybody in the public would like to address the board regarding this item.
And I do not see any hands raised at this time. And just ask Matthew if there was any written comment.
Mr. Chair, we did not receive public comment. I did want to say though, in terms of what we're looking for from the board today would be, we do not need a formal motion as this is not going anywhere. So we'll ask that Mary sort of summarize each individual board member's comments for the applicant to bring back to the Coastal Commission.
Okay, thank you. So we will close public comment and go to questions from the board. Richard, do you want to start?
Sure. I'd like for you to go over the materials, a little more clarification on the materials.
Can you turn your webcam on, Richard?
Yeah. So the roof, what do you call it? The roof canted underside of the soffit, the roof. That's what the terracotta color is. What?
That if you get really close to it, it's actually a metal panel that is in a format where we can, it's not one solid color, so it starts to mimic the coloring of the terracotta tiles, which is also not one solid color, but it's actually a metal panel covering.
So it would be a matte.
A matte finish, yeah.
Okay, and I was interrupted by the ring of my phone. I didn't answer it, but where did you say the faux sandstone would be?
So if you see where it says SBCC physical education there, that whole kind of like brown color, those are large format kind of tiles that are mimicking that sandstone. It's not actually sandstone, but the idea is the coloration and use of it is similar to the Santa Barbara sandstone. And it'll also have somewhat of a varying color to it instead of a solid color.
So that would be the aluminum panel or the glass fiber reinforced concrete?
Glass fiber reinforced concrete.
So it would have some texture to it.
Correct. It'd feel more like a tile than a metal. The metal is up high on the roof, and it is a matte finish, so it's not so glossy.
Yeah, and then the whites of the building, you know, the columns and so forth. Those are round columns.
Correct.
Yeah, and they would be a rain screen type panel.
Those columns are actually cast in place concrete. So the majority of what you're seeing that is that white color is a very light gray that, you know, over time it really looks like it's white.
Okay, then I noticed there. Oh, what material is your vertical slats that you see in the openings to the right below the faux sandstone onto the second story?
Sure, that's an extruded aluminum metal storefront system.
So the sunscreen?
Correct. It's actually extrusions. It's the same material as the metal window wall system. the metal and glass, and then we'll actually utilize, we're looking at the option of potentially trying to see if we can get some of the tile to actually be the screen, if we can get that integrated. Otherwise, it'll be aluminum. It'll be one of those two.
So the aluminum storefronts would be clear anodized?
The color itself, we haven't formalized yet, but it would likely be, I'm not sure it would be clear anodized. It'd be probably a darker color, more similar to the, not quite bronze. I think that's too dark, but closer to the sandstone color.
Okay, then can you, there was I think it was on the, oh gosh, it would be the north elevation around the corner from the SBCC logo. No, other way. Still more.
Right there.
Where did I see a very dark vertical?
Yeah, probably these guys. You're trying to look at the aluminum?
No, that's clear. Well, once we're here, why is this soffit not canted like the lower one below?
We did actually look at that, and it started to be a combination of the scale of it not being appropriate. Especially when we started, we actually had one exactly like that, where it was canted here, and it didn't fit very well. And then this allowed, both from the cost-effective nature, being able to get some simple eyebrows, but still bring in that color from the terracotta. And it really is, when you look at the overall composition, this element at the top of the campus is different when you kind of look at it as a kind of a layout than the overall 3-story box. And that's really where we wanted to highlight the roof there.
Okay, so then when we're looking, again, when we're looking at the white of this, is going to simulate or have a matte, are these aluminum panels and they're matte in off-white?
Yeah. They're cast in place concrete. All of that kind of white, it's all cast in place concrete.
And it would be a natural concrete?
And we're trying to get it as light gray as possible. And then we've also looked at the option, obviously, once we start doing some mock-ups under construction, the possibility of painting them, but we're trying to use the rawness of the concrete to mimic the white.
And then, for instance, these windows along the classroom, are they recessed from the face of the concrete?
Slightly, yes, because these walls are about 10 inches thick, some cases 14 inches thick, so they would have some recess to them.
Okay, if you could then scroll through and see if I can catch the image that I was 1, 2, no. There, what's that dark band above the girls?
This is a very slight reveal in the concrete. So we're actually looking at this.
The vertical striations. What's the material?
Correct. We at one time we were thinking it was actually going to be louvers, and actually subsequently from finishing these renderings, it's actually just going to be a slight reveal in the concrete, so that it gives some relief from this tall wall going up to meet the roof.
So you're going to darken the concrete, and then are you changing this?
We're going to, it's not going to be as dark as you see here. We are looking at the possibility of it just using the shadow lines. And then again, similar to the white, if it doesn't come out white enough, looking at a paint color.
Okay, then your glass is on. Oh, let's go to the south elevation.
Okay. It's either that one or the next one. Yeah, that one. Okay.
Yeah, this is good. So the window wall above the grand stairway there.
Mhm.
Is that flush butted glass or?
Yes, it is. And it also has ceramic frit on it. And in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
instance you're seeing here, it's ceramic frit and a logo. And then in other areas, it's ceramic frit for either glazing or for identifying the glazing for the birds.
Okay, I think those are my questions. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Okay. Leon, questions?
Yes, there's a lot of flat work, concrete work, and how do you imagine that will be finished?
And we're looking at that as we speak, actually, and we think there's going to be a combination of either raw gray concrete alongside of some either top cast or sandblasted concrete to kind of give it some texture without having to. We're not doing or suggesting any integral color at this time, so we're looking at using the different textures throughout the flatwork.
Okay, mechanical systems.
Mhm.
Where are they?
So actually what you can't see is on the third story in a deepened well, we have a chiller plant for this building, actually recessed. So from a distance, you really won't see any of the mechanical units. They're gonna be either within the ceiling spaces of the rooms themselves or the gym, for example, those large units similar to the gym that's there now is actually on the third floor, so not on the roof, and it's completely concealed in a well.
Thank you. One last question.
Mhm.
Have you given any considerations to the change of use and the way this building might be used in the future, post-pandemic, as we hear a lot about changes of how students might use these facilities? Have you incorporated any of those thoughts into it?
Lindsay, you want to take that one? Because I don't know, we haven't really had any specific questions on that yet.
I'm actually going to jump in here. Great question, Leon, but really we're worried about the exterior appearance of the building and trying to limit our viewpoint to that.
Well, that would affect the exterior.
Well, there's a lot of what ifs. I think everybody would appreciate if we could just focus on what we're being presented with at this time.
No more questions.
Okay, thank you. Dennis, you have questions?
Sure, thank you, Chair Moore. First for Ms. Maas, is there any kind of architectural review board within the campus structure itself?
Not in that sense that you're describing, but I can tell you our processes in community colleges, we have a shared governance process where this type of project and many of the other work we do at community colleges goes through various committees where we present these types of things and receive feedback. So I do host a facilities and safety committee on our campus, and then we have multiple other committees that we also brought this project to receive feedback. And we received a fair amount of feedback and morphed the building multiple times based on that. Specifically, some of the items you see here, like the nod to the red tile roof and the nod to the Santa Barbara stone, came out of a lot of those different meetings where we discussed the look and feel of this building and what our internal community members and constituents were looking for the building.
Right, thank you. Just two other questions, and they relate, one of them relates to this image here. Down in the lower left, it looks like there's some kind of retaining wall between a parking lot access and the landscape. What, am I correct in that? What's going on that one needs a retaining wall there?
Yeah, you are. This is somewhat incorrect, this rendering on that left-hand side. What's actually happening is that parking lot is higher, and so you wouldn't actually have a retaining wall there, you'd have a slight ramp down. Like the road itself actually comes down a little driveway to get into this main parking lot we're at. So it's not truly rendered correctly here. It's not really a retaining wall per se.
What I'd really like to know is there a pedestrian walkway contiguous along that drive aisle?
So the drive aisle itself, once you get to this location, that's a great question. Once you get to this location, the accessibility becomes almost impossible to comply with. This is like a 10% slope. So where we are providing on our site, we're providing the path of travel contiguous all the way from where the existing parking lot ends, and you can walk all the way. You can kind of see in the distance in this rendering where people can continue to walk all the way down on the stadium once they get on campus. Off campus, the sidewalk that is right there on Loma Alta, it gets a little tight right in this particular area you're talking about, Dennis, and it's pretty tight to meet the grades there. So, but there is a continuous walk.
And then finally, relating to this relationship, there's a bicycle tootling along there in the middle. Where's the bike parking for this project?
So there's actually a couple areas. There's going to be one area down to the, I'll just call it the left under these trees. There's also another at the very top of the bluff. There's a bicycle shop as well as additional bike parking at the top of the bluff. So we have bikes at both the top and the bottom. And on the rendering, if you go back one rendering, the stairway that is going up, go the other direction, please. Well, actually both of these. Well, there's a stairway on this side. The stairway on the other side of the building, we're actually integrating, I don't know if you've seen them in other cities, a bike ramp where you can actually push your bike up these if you wanted to go up and down the bike. So we're actually providing that ability in the stairs themselves.
Thank you. That's all I have, Chair Moore.
Okay. Let's see. Mr. Black, do you have any questions?
Let me turn myself on.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I have questions, but I think I personally would have appreciated, as part of this presentation, some photographs of the rest of the campus. I mean, you're talking about taking inspiration from, some of the other buildings, from Santa Barbara in general. I would have liked to sort of see some of that, to see how this building sort of integrates itself with the rest of the campus. I would have liked to see too, some photographs of the actual site from different angles, just kind of get my head around it a little bit more. But I know you had a sort of conceptual landscape plan, which I looked through. I think that the palette of plant material looked appropriate. It seems like there's a lot of native and drought tolerant material, which is important. And I don't see a lot of lawn here, which I think is a plus, given how much lawn there is on that campus already. But other than that, no other questions. Thanks.
Okay. Who's left? Maybe everybody, whoever's commented or had their questions, if you could turn your cameras off. It's hard to keep track of who's had a turn and who hasn't.
Chair Moore, before you, I think you're going to probably make have some questions as well, but I wanted to just chime in really quickly and ask the applicant to clarify their permitting process, or at least who their permitting authority is. I may have misspoken. I just want to make sure that we all get the right information.
Sure, not a problem, Irma. The Division of the State Architect has the jurisdiction for the permits in this instance.
Okay, thank you for that. And then I have a couple questions. So am I correct that the gym facility itself is essentially moving closer towards the stadium to where the kind of lower building is now? Is that right?
I would say yes and no. Actually, it does already come this far. And if you, let's see, maybe the photos, aerials, if you go to that PDF, forget what was on here. Okay, so you see right now, that's actually a good image right there. So right to the right is the existing major mass of the building. that's labeled PE building. And where we're placing our building is half of that building is going to be taken down. So, I mean, it feels like it's coming closer, but it's already there. It's just the volume is, I guess the volume of the gym would be coming closer to the stadium. However, the footprint itself is pretty much staying in the same footprint. And then it's being condensed, Kevin, so that basically everything that is in this picture that you see here is now being condensed to the left of that PE mass, that main box in the volume, and then that box is becoming fully open space for the community and the college. There'll be no building.
Okay, so just to be clear, what's being labeled as PE building now becomes open space.
Mm-hmm.
And the areas that are 1.5 story, 2 story, sort of to the left in this image, that becomes 3 and ultimately 4 stories at the very top.
Correct.
So it is creeping towards the stadium and closer towards the beach, essentially.
Yeah, the overall, I guess the high volume would be, but the overall footprint is staying pretty much in the same place it is. So we're not actually getting that much closer in the overall footprint, but that is correct statement.
Right, the volume of the gym is moving towards the stadium. Okay. And then if we could go back to the renderings. I know you talked briefly about, well, the colors are a nod to Santa Barbara and the massing is a result of some discussions with the Coastal Commission about breaking up the plains and trying to reduce the apparent mass. Can you tell me why the roof line is just an uninterrupted plane across the entire 3 elevations? Is there a reason that it can't be stopped and started or modified to break up some of that length?
Sure. Thank you for the question, Kevin. So yes, the idea architecturally here is that roof that is capping the 3-story element, if you will. It does, when you look at the floor plans, I know we weren't getting into too much detail on that today, but when you really look at the massing of the floor plans and how the programs work, this is really that element that is kind of tying all of those pieces together. So when you're walking around this building, you're kind of getting a consistent datum point. However, each of the facades are obviously, different depending on where you're standing, right? It's either got some of the sandstone element. On this side, it's more open to the views of the stadium. On the other side, it's a little bit more closed up because it's on more of the, that's where our mechanical wells and stuff are, but it's an open space. So that is kind of a unifying element that goes around the building. And we looked at it kind of going in and out, and it actually became a little bit more disjointed as we did that. So that's why it's kind of capping that whole 3-story element.
Okay.
Hope that answers your question. Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, I missed the very first part of that, but I think I grasped what you were saying.
Okay.
And then to the second part of that question is the materiality of this. And I understand it's part of the campus architecture, so it may trend towards a little bit more contemporary materiality and general design aesthetic. But do you have images in that other PDF that would show how that relates to the other campus architecture?
Oh, I'm trying to remember what was on these. I don't believe in this document it does have that. It has some representative pictures if you kind of glance through here. Second, this is more aerials. I don't believe it had very many. You can start to see it. Here's some of them. If you actually go back there, actually right there is good. If you stay there, you can start to see to kind of your other question about the massing. That white box on the left is the existing gym, And then you can kind of see superimposed onto it the new massing. So they are basically the same height, but it is bringing closer to the stadium. But I don't see in this actual document any of the other pictures that you're looking for.
Okay, and then, all right. Those are my questions. Does anybody else have any follow-up questions? Nope, okay. Let's go on to our comments then. We could have the applicants turn their off and then get the board members up. All right. Who would like to start? How about you, Richard?
Okay, well, with a few radical exceptions, this is a little better than what the images that were posted on the internet were. But I walked the campus yesterday just to refamiliarize myself with campus, and sure enough, even from the initial very traditional older buildings to and even the new West Campus Center, all have a theme and a consistency of what in Santa Barbara we call mass-based architecture. It's, you know, that the exterior walls, if not actually, they look like they're bearing weight. The windows are and have mass and thickness. They are all, you know, the window openings are indeed windows in those exterior load-bearing walls, and they're either recessed or sized where the lintels across them look reasonable to bear the load. You know, if most of the buildings have the traditional mullions that have the color contrast of, you know, either Santa Barbara blue or darker or whatever that is traditional. When roofs are exposed, they're mission tile. So it has consistency. Even the new West Campus Center has a inverted cant on their roof perimeter, but it's white and it's at a size that kind of is, you know, you kind of see it as perhaps a modern, but a nod to the moldings that you would see on top of mass-based exterior walls. You know, I have some real problems with what we have presented here. I think number one, I'll go through the most important. I think this flip of this soffit, canted soffit, is just really unfortunate. It's the only good thing about it is the terracotta color. It's totally out of place with the rest of the theme of the campus. It's I think, you know, somebody had a immediate idea that, hey, why don't we flip the red canted tile roofs and flip it over upside down, and it's just unfortunate. I think that as far as the mass-based architecture, you know, it's even the more contemporary modern buildings, again, I'm repeating myself, but they have window expressions and glazing expressions that show that they have load-bearing elements around them. Here we have, you know, this, you know, the window walls on the third floor, on the two-story window wall at this corner of this image we saw here, and especially the little up on the top, the entry clear glass box that we see there. That's all floating contemporary architecture that's very diametrically opposed to the sympathy and not at all in sympathy with any of the architecture of the campus. And most importantly, this building here is going to be, you know, if not the only prominent piece of architecture visible to the surrounding community. And, you know, it's so, these elements are so foreign to what we see. I'm very concerned. The gray second story element that we see here is, you know, floating with these thin columns. Nothing about a faux sandstone or image or reference to sandstone is logical on thin columns as we see here. And also I just really doubt whether one can prepare and achieve a wide enough rock exposed concrete to get anywhere near the theme, the off-white theme of the rest of the campus. I think I have a list of priorities if, you know, that I can express, but I think that will be in comments. Those are my, okay, this is it now. My priorities, I think number one, this is it. Number one, the Candid Roof. I so wish you guys, the applicant and the college would reconsider that roof. It's just so foreign. Second, I think that the way that most of the window walls meet these soffits and so forth without any recognition of mass-based architecture, holding that floating roof up just simply by glass is just, you know, the second priority. The third priority is, well, you know, the floating of the second floor faux sandstone element. And third, I would look to see that you get this building wide enough in color. Those are my comments.
Thank you. David, do you want to go next?
Sure. You know, I would agree wholeheartedly with what Richard has just said. I'm very troubled by that roof, both by the form for the per the comments that you made, Kevin, earlier, just that one big contiguous or continuous form just seems overpowering. And then a nod to the terracotta or not, that color, I think, just is way too strong for the campus. It's just too much of it. It's too bright. I think you need to have something a lot more subtle to sort of integrate better with the campus. That's all.
Okay, Leon, comments?
No comments.
Okay, Dennis, anything to add comment-wise?
Yes, first I want to support the other two comments about the roof and especially the glass box. I took some time to read the design guidelines for campus, so I'm trying to gear my comments towards that. But first of all, it is a good use of the area and maximizing what little space the campus has by moving it close to the track and creating a dense, compact campus. Minimal disruption to the natural topography, and the massing and the scale seem appropriate. However, because of that large parking lot down below, and my personal experience taking classes on campus, this building is really the uniter for both the campuses, the old and the west campus. I'm sorry, I don't know the names, but those that are connected by the bridges. So it really has a big job to do. And I think it kind of fails for the reasons that have been stated. The sort of superannuated roof and the glass box entryway have very little to do with campus, and it should seek to strengthen its connectivity with all the other buildings on campus. And now I do admire how much the design has progressed between the set of drawings that we were given and these images. So it looks like it's heading in a good direction. But the street level presence where the classrooms are was, I thought, very weak. Has improved a little bit now on this version. But that intersection right there, the pedestrian intersection that the classrooms faces, is a major thoroughfare for campus, and more people are going to be flowing around this building than through it. So the staircases on, I'll call them the north and south side, become major elements of the building. And in this illustration, in this design, I think this kind of falls apart because the design guidelines seek to integrate the buildings with the exterior landscape, and there really isn't any. You're going to trudge up those stairs on the stadium side. They should really reach out into the landscape, perhaps provide a little seating pop out at the landings. I mean, there's going to be a lot of activity around there. And then on the other side, which we don't get to see in any of these presentations, I was really troubled by the long throw of that stair. And with the amount of pedestrian traffic that's going to be moving up and down there, it should, for my intents and purposes, be more like the Piazza di Spagna, where certain things happen on this big stair and people can stop and admire the view or sit in little areas. I think that is a major failing of this design. Let's see. I have some other notes here. That may be just about it. So to reinforce it, we need more of a regional context and provide a variety of outdoor spaces of varying scales. And again, on this, the two sides that have staircases. And the building really fails to create a sense of space. Well, there is this arrival gesture from the parking lot. Beyond that, there isn't really much, and the building kind of falls apart for that reason. And then finally, just strengthen the relationship between those exterior spaces, i.e. the stairways, and the environment. That'll conclude for me.
Okay. Who else do we have? We had Dennis, Leon, David, Richard. This is just me next. Commit. So I would preface my comments by saying these are directed towards the City College campus and the administration. And I would implore that they take a very hard look at this design and really ask themselves how this relates to Santa Barbara and the community beyond some colors of materials and nods towards materiality. And I would especially ask them to take a look at the context that this is in, and that when viewed from the beach or the public way, that this building is going to appear to be massive. This is a very big building, and that the inclusion of this singular roof plane that then continues to cant out and extend even further past the building just enhances that feeling of mass. And I think the inclusion of that design feature goes against what the Coastal Commission was asking you to do, was asking the applicant to do, which was to break up the building massing. And there seems to be areas where there's volume where there just doesn't need to be volume. And if this were a project that was not on the City College campus, that I don't think this design would be acceptable to this board. So I would, again, really encourage the administration of City College to take another look at this design. Okay, any other comments to add? Yes, Dennis.
Yes, this tearing off your comments, Kevin, this building seems decidedly modernist. And I don't think of the City College campus either in its present state or in the architectural guidelines as modernist.
Okay. Well, if that's it, I don't know if we need to have comments read back to us. There were a lot of comments made. Matthew and Mary, how confident are you in capturing everything?
This is Mary. Yeah, I got pretty much everything.
Yes,
Okay.
and this is recorded, so if there are any things that we need to clear up, we can check the record as well.
Okay. Well, if that is it, then we can.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Richard.
Yes. We just want to thank the applicant and the college for choosing to come to us for review.
Yes, it's important to acknowledge that they have made this effort and have gone to the lengths required to produce these renderings and all of that. So we appreciate that. But with that, we can now close our agenda for the 29th. Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen.